The twilight years, those often spoken of in hushed tones or with a gloss of sentimental nostalgia, hold within them a profound and frequently unacknowledged shift. Crossing the threshold into one's 80s is not merely about accumulating another decade, it's an entry into a distinct chapter of life, one that brings a quiet metamorphosis that few openly discuss. We hear about the celebrated milestones, the slower cadence of mornings, perhaps even the joy of extended family. But what of the deeper, more intricate, and sometimes unsettling transformations that unfold beneath the surface? Imagine for a moment that life is a vast, intricate tapestry woven over decades. By 80, that tapestry is rich with color and experience, but some threads may have frayed, others grown thin, and the overall pattern begins to reveal its final poignant beauty. This is a period brimming with earned wisdom and concurrently the sting of undeniable loss, a time of profound presence interwoven with an encroaching distance, moments of deep, abiding peace that can be startlingly interrupted by an equally deep loneliness. If these subtle yet seismic shifts are not anticipated, they can catch one unawares, leaving a lingering question: why did no one prepare me for this? This exploration is not intended to cast a shadow, to frighten, or to induce melancholy. Instead, our purpose is to illuminate 5 significant, often unspoken realities of life beyond the 80th year, offering clarity and fostering a sense of preparedness. For when we can see these changes approaching, we are no longer buffeted by them as by an unexpected storm. We can instead greet them with foresight, with strength born of understanding, and with a resilience that allows us to navigate this terrain with grace. We will delve into the phenomenon of shrinking social circles, the body's altered response to physical challenges, the creeping tendrils of dependence that can feel alien even when essential, the subtle ways society may begin to overlook its elders, and that peculiar ache that arises when old regrets encounter an abundance of time and a perceived scarcity of purpose. Journey with us through these truths, for while some may feel weighty, they also unlock the door to something incredibly powerful: acceptance, the fortification of inner resilience, and the profound opportunity to shape this final stretch of life with a dignity that is self-defined, unshakable, and uniquely one's own. Let us, with open eyes and steady hearts, examine what truly unfolds after 80 and how to walk this path with enduring strength. If you're ready to explore these often unspoken truths and find ways to navigate them with strength, stay with us. And if you believe this conversation is important, let us know by typing "ready" in the comments below. 1. The unraveling tapestry. Navigating a quietly disappearing social circle. One of the earliest and most pervasive realities that often dawns in the 8th decade is not primarily physical, but deeply relational. The vibrant constellation of people who once illuminated your world, friends, colleagues, neighbors, even extended family, begins to diminish, often with a disquieting stealth. It's a gradual fading, like stars winking out one by one in the night sky. Friends from youth, companions through midlife's adventures, and even cherished siblings may pass away, succumb to illnesses that limit interaction, or relocate to be closer to their own support systems. The weekly phone calls that were once a staple of connection might dwindle to monthly, then to occasional check-ins. This isn't a reflection of diminished affection or a personal slight. It is, quite starkly, the relentless passage of time and the diverging paths that life dictates. Yet the space left behind can feel cavernous, a hollow echo in the architecture of one's daily life, regardless of how inherently strong or independent an individual may be. You might awaken one morning to the stark realization that the telephone, once a herald of news and friendly chatter, remains stubbornly silent. Invitations to social gatherings become less frequent. Family visits, while still cherished, may grow shorter, more condensed, squeezed into the busy lives of younger generations grappling with their own responsibilities. People still care, undoubtedly, but their energies are often consumed by their own immediate concerns, their careers, their children, or their own processes of aging, which can manifest very differently from one person to another. And so, almost imperceptibly, the everyday interactions, the casual coffees, the shared laughter over a card game, the spontaneous doorstep conversations that once wove a rich tapestry of voices and companionship, begin to thin, leaving a landscape that feels increasingly sparse. This is not a transition for which society typically prepares us. In our 60s and even well into our 70s, many of our peers are still active, present, and engaged. There's a collective energy, a sense of shared movement and continued participation. But the years after 80 often mark a more discernible shift. One begins to outlive dear friends and contemporaries. The shared cultural touchstones and colloquialisms that defined your generation may no longer resonate with the same immediacy in broader conversations. This shift is often so quiet, so insidious, that its full impact might not be recognized until a profound sense of isolation has already taken root. Consider the story of Walter, a gentleman of 84, who for decades had a cherished morning ritual, a visit to the same local coffee shop. The staff knew his usual order without asking. His circle of friends would gather there, a comfortable, unspoken appointment. It was a rhythm, a cornerstone of his social life. But over several years, Walter recounted, that rhythm faltered. One friend passed, another moved to an assisted living facility further away, and a third simply stopped driving due to failing eyesight. It's a peculiar feeling, Walter confided, his voice tinged with a gentle sorrow, to walk into a place where everyone once knew your name, where the air buzzed with familiar voices, and now I'm often just the quiet old man in the corner booth. The pain of this kind of loneliness isn't always a dramatic, overt grief. It doesn't necessarily manifest in tears or outward displays of distress. Sometimes it's the prolonged silence after the evening meal, a walk around the neighborhood that feels disconcertingly solitary, or the slow, dawning awareness that the list of people who truly know you, who share your deepest history and understand your unspoken nuances, is inexorably shrinking, and there's little you can do to halt that particular tide. Walter's experience of a familiar place becoming alien is a poignant one. Have you witnessed or experienced a similar shift in social connections, either for yourself or a loved one? Share your reflections in the comments. Your story could resonate deeply with others. That was our first point about the shrinking social circle. If you're finding this exploration insightful, please comment with the number 1 below to let us know. However, acknowledging this stark reality is the first step towards actively mitigating its impact. It means understanding that connection in this chapter of life may not arrive as spontaneously as it once did. It requires a conscious, sometimes courageous effort to open new doors even as others have gently closed. This might involve seeking out new communities, perhaps through a local senior center, a church or temple group, a book club, or even rekindling old hobbies that bring you into contact with others. It could mean mastering new technologies to connect with family and friends who are geographically distant, or simply making it a point to initiate those phone calls or write those letters. The truth is, after 80, connection often requires you to be the seeker. But therein lies a quiet strength. You have navigated 8 decades of life with all its attendant challenges and triumphs. The courage required to reach out, to forge new bonds or nurture existing ones is already within you, a well-honed instrument ready to be played. 2. The echo of time. When the body stops bouncing back. By the time one crosses into their 80s, the body communicates its needs and limitations not in subtle whispers, but with a clear, often insistent voice. The minor aches and pains that might have been fleeting annoyances in earlier decades now tend to linger, becoming more constant companions. The fatigue that a good night's sleep or a brief afternoon nap once easily dispelled might now stretch across several days, casting a pall over energy levels and motivation. And here lies a truth that frequently catches many individuals unprepared. After 80, even seemingly small health problems can precipitate significant, sometimes permanent, changes in one's daily life and overall capabilities, almost overnight. Imagine this scenario. You wake up feeling perfectly fine, proceed through your day with your usual routines, and then, as evening approaches, a subtle disquiet begins. Perhaps it's a touch of dizziness, an unfamiliar soreness in a leg, or a persistent cough that doesn't yield to simple remedies. Suddenly, what might have been dismissed in younger years finds you in a doctor's waiting room, listening to words like monitoring, further imaging, or more alarmingly, possible hospital admission. The ailments that were once brushed off with a bit of rest and a wait-and-see attitude now demand immediate and serious attention. And crucially, there is often no simple return to the before, the state of health and vitality that existed prior to the event. The baseline shifts. What makes this particular stage of life so challenging isn't solely the physical discomfort or pain, though that is certainly a factor. It's the pervasive unpredictability. You can meticulously follow all the advice, eat a balanced diet, engage in gentle and regular movement, prioritize sleep, and attend all your medical appointments. Yet, despite these best efforts, it can feel as though your body is operating on its own agenda, making decisions and enacting changes to which you haven't consented. A slight misstep on a familiar staircase, something that might have resulted in a minor bruise at 60, can now lead to weeks, even months, of arduous recovery, possibly involving surgery or intensive rehabilitation. A common stomach bug, easily shaken off in the past, can now drain your reserves for days on end, leaving you profoundly weakened. And even when recovery from an acute episode does occur, things don't always snap back to their previous normal. Your balance might feel permanently altered, a little less secure. Your breathing might require more conscious effort. The bounce back, that resilient ability to return to a former state of vigor, is palpably diminished, or in some cases, absent altogether. I once knew a remarkable woman named Gloria, 81 years young, who was the epitome of sharpness, activity, and fierce independence. She took immense pride in her meticulously tended backyard garden, her daily walks through the neighborhood, and her active participation in her book club. Her life was full and engaged. But after what she described as a minor fall while trimming a prize-winning rosebush, everything changed. It wasn't the injury itself that was so devastating, a fractured wrist, painful but mendable, she recounted with a sigh. It was the aftermath. Weeks of prescribed rest necessary for healing slowly bled into months of reduced strength and mobility. Her confidence, once so robust, began to erode. I genuinely thought I was just taking a temporary break, a pause to let my body heal, she said, her voice laced with a touch of bewilderment. But my body seemed to interpret it as a full stop, a signal for a more permanent downshift. That, she explained, was the part no one had truly prepared her for. At 80, extended rest, while often medically essential, is not always restorative in the same rejuvenative way it once was. It can, paradoxically, sometimes pave the way for a more rapid decline if one is not exceptionally careful and proactive. And even with utmost care, the body sometimes simply decides to slow its pace, to operate on a new, more conservative energy budget. You come to realize that you're not so much bouncing back as you are adapting forward, learning to navigate a new physical landscape. Gloria's realization that rest wasn't always restorative in the same way is a crucial insight. It marks a shift from bouncing back to adapting forward. This is the second key reality we're discussing. If you appreciate this frank discussion about physical changes in later life, please comment with the number 2 below. We'd also love to hear if you or someone you know has found effective ways to adapt to these physical shifts. Yet, within this understanding lies a profound strength. You begin to honor your body's energy more wisely, to treat it with a newfound respect, born from a deeper appreciation of the incredible journey it has undertaken to carry you this far. Pacing oneself becomes not an act of fear, but an act of wisdom. Health transitions from being an assumed guarantee to a daily, conscious practice, almost a sacred ritual of self-care. When this shift in perspective occurs, even if the exuberant bounce of youth is gone, your footing on life's path can become steadier, more deliberate. You may walk more slowly, but you do so with greater awareness. You may rest for longer periods, but that rest becomes more intentional, more deeply valued. And in this process, you begin to see that even a body that moves at a slower tempo can still house an indomitably strong spirit, capable of finding joy and meaning in each day. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. 3. The delicate dance of dependence, embracing help with grace. Regardless of how resolutely independent one has been throughout a lifetime, one of the most challenging emotional adjustments after the age of 80 often involves the growing necessity of accepting help for tasks that were once performed without a second thought. This transition rarely happens abruptly. It's more often a subtle, creeping encroachment. It begins with small hesitations, minor avoidances. Perhaps you find yourself consistently bypassing the items on the highest kitchen shelves, or you notice your grip tightening on the banister just a little more firmly than before. Maybe there's a flicker of unease before getting behind the wheel on a rainy evening, or a moment's pause before attempting to lift a moderately heavy grocery bag. While a significant part of you still feels entirely capable, Another, quieter part acknowledges that certain activities are no longer as effortless or as safe as they once were. What makes this emerging reality particularly difficult is not solely the physical shift itself, but the profound emotional recalibration it demands. For individuals who have spent decades not only managing their own lives, but also often taking care of others, raising children, supporting spouses, contributing professionally, the prospect of becoming the one who needs assistance can feel deeply uncomfortable, even discordant with their ingrained sense of self. A fear of becoming a burden to loved ones can surface, sometimes leading to a reluctance to voice emerging needs. This can manifest in small deceptions. Skipping a necessary grocery trip because the thought of navigating the crowded aisles and carrying heavy bags is too daunting, or not mentioning to adult children that you tripped while trying to change a light bulb single-handedly, even though your shoulder has been aching for weeks. The intrinsic desire to maintain independence doesn't diminish with age. If anything, it often intensifies. However, the crucial understanding here is that independence after 80 may look and feel fundamentally different than it did at 60 or 70. It ceases to be solely about doing everything alone and unaided. Instead, it evolves into the wisdom of knowing when to ask for help and summoning the bravery to accept it gracefully when offered. I recall a conversation with Eugene, a robust man of 85 who took immense pride in his lifelong self-sufficiency. He had served in the military, raised 4 capable children, and famously built a sturdy shed in his backyard using nothing but salvaged wood and his own determination. He was the quintessential do-it-yourselfer. One particularly harsh winter, however, he slipped on an icy patch on his driveway. Thankfully, there were no broken bones, just a badly bruised hip and, perhaps more significantly, a bruised sense of pride. True to form, he didn't tell anyone about the incident initially. But his observant daughter noticed subtle changes in his mobility and demeanor during her subsequent visits. She began, unbidden, to show up once a week with a small load of groceries and would stay for a cup of coffee and a chat. At first, Eugene was resistant, almost gruff. "I'm perfectly fine," he'd insist, waving away her offers of help. But over time, that weekly coffee became a cherished ritual, a point of connection. And eventually, during one of these quiet moments, he admitted something that surprised even himself. "You know," he said, looking out the window, "it's actually rather nice not having to carry everything alone anymore." That admission marked a significant shift. It wasn't an admission of weakness, but rather a testament to acquired wisdom. The understanding that accepting help isn't a surrender of independence, but often a strategic way of preserving it for longer. Because when you allow someone to assist you with climbing a tricky set of stairs or drive you to a doctor's appointment in inclement weather or carry that awkwardly heavy package, you are in fact conserving your energy and reducing risks, thereby potentially extending your ability to manage other aspects of your life that matter most to you. Eugene's initial resistance and eventual acceptance of help highlight a common struggle. "It's nice not having to carry everything alone" is such a powerful admission. This is the third crucial point. If this resonates with your experiences, or if you've seen this dynamic play out, comment with the number 3 below. What are your thoughts on balancing independence with the need for support in later life? Furthermore, not all assistance needs to come from other people. Thoughtfully integrated assistive devices can play a crucial role in maintaining safety and autonomy. A strategically placed grab bar in the shower, a sturdy stool in the kitchen to reach higher items, a medication organizer, or even simple reminders posted on the refrigerator can make a world of difference. These small supports are not symbols of frailty. Rather, they are emblems of proactive self-care, tools that enhance dignity by preventing accidents and enabling continued self-management. After 80, one of the bravest and most empowering phrases one can utter might simply be, "I could use a hand with that." Because as the years advance, true strength is often demonstrated not by stubborn refusal, but by the discerning choice of safety over unnecessary struggle, peace of mind over pride, and connection over isolation. 4. The unseen presence. Reclaiming visibility in a world that looks away. One of the more subtly painful, yet deeply felt realities of life after 80 often has less to do with the body's changes or memory's occasional lapses, and more to do with one's perceived presence or lack thereof in the wider world. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, You may begin to feel as though you are becoming invisible, perhaps not to your immediate family or closest friends who know and cherish you, but to the bustling, often hurried society at large. It can manifest in myriad small ways. The cashier at the supermarket who seems to look right past you to address the person next in line, the doctor who, despite your presence and capacity to understand, directs questions and explanations primarily to your accompanying adult child, the server at a restaurant who makes assumptions about your ability to hear, to comprehend the menu, or to make your own choices, perhaps speaking unnecessarily loudly or slowly. These instances of being overlooked are subtle initially, perhaps easily dismissed, but as they become more frequent, they can accumulate, landing with a quiet weight somewhere deep within. Because irrespective of age, a fundamental human need is to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be recognized as a distinct and valuable individual. When you have lived a long and full life, a life encompassing work, family, community engagement, personal achievements, and the weathering of innumerable storms, it is jarring, even insulting, to feel dismissed or rendered inconsequential simply because your skin has gathered more folds, your hair has turned to silver, or your gait is less swift than it once was. What often hurts more profoundly is the realization that this societal overlooking is rarely born of malice or ill intent. It's more often a byproduct of a world that moves at an increasingly rapid pace, a world that sometimes forgets that slower steps still carry profound stories and accumulated wisdom. It stems from a culture that often lionizes youth and novelty, sometimes inadvertently devaluing the immense strength, resilience, and experience it took to reach an advanced age. And unless you consciously and consistently make an effort to assert your presence and voice, there's a genuine risk of inadvertently shrinking, not because you have lost your capacity to contribute or articulate, but because the world around you may gradually stop listening, assuming you have nothing left to say or offer. I am reminded of Irene, a sharp and articulate woman of 86, who dedicated many hours each week to volunteering at a local historical museum. She possessed a wealth of firsthand knowledge about certain exhibits, having lived through the very decades they represented. One afternoon, a visitor posed a complex question to a young staff member, a question Irene could have answered with depth and nuance in her sleep. Yet the inquiry and the subsequent discussion sailed right over her, as if she were merely part of the room's fixtures. When I later gently asked her how such moments made her feel, she offered a polite, almost resigned smile and said, "Oh, I'm quite used to it by now." But beneath that smile, there was an unmistakable flicker of sadness, the kind that arises from being perceived as inanimate background scenery, rather than the vibrant, living fire of experience and knowledge that she still very much was. Irene's experience of being seen as furniture instead of fire is a stark reminder of how ageism can manifest. This is our fourth point. If you believe in the importance of every individual being seen and heard, regardless of age, please comment with the number 4. Have you witnessed or experienced moments where older individuals were unfairly overlooked? But you are not furniture. You are not background noise. You are still unequivocally here, still thinking, feeling, observing, and capable of contributing in meaningful ways. Just because the world, in its haste, sometimes forgets this fundamental truth does not mean you have to internalize that oversight or allow it to define you. So what is the antidote? You speak anyway. You ask the pertinent questions, even if uninvited. You offer your well-considered opinions, grounded in a lifetime of experience. You continue to engage in civic life, to vote, to participate. You share your stories, your memories, your wisdom, even when you're not explicitly prompted. You continue to stand up for yourself and for what you believe in, even if your knees tremble a little. Because every single time you consciously claim your space in the room, every time you ensure your voice is heard, you issue a powerful reminder, both to the world and, just as importantly to yourself, that you are not finished. You are not invisible. You are a living library, a first-hand witness to history, a voice that still resonates and matters profoundly. And you don't need to shout to be heard. You simply need to refuse to disappear, to gently but firmly insist on your continued presence and relevance. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. 5. The alchemy of age, redefining purpose and transmuting regret. As one moves more deeply into the landscape of the 80s and beyond, a unique kind of quiet often begins to settle in. This isn't just an external quietness found in a less bustling home or a more open schedule. It's an internal stillness, a spaciousness within the mind and spirit. Life's relentless pace often slows. The demands of career and child rearing recede further into the past, and the daily calendar may no longer be as densely packed with obligations. With this deceleration comes an expansion of time, of space for reflection, for remembering, for replaying scenes from a long life. This can be a period of beautiful introspection, of gleaning wisdom from past experiences. However, if one is not careful, this expanded internal space can also become fertile ground for a heavy, lingering guest, regret. Not the loud, dramatic, flagellating kind of regret, but often a quieter, more insidious variety. The "I wish I had spent more time with them" kind. The "why didn't I take that chance when I had it" musings. The subtle ache that surfaces when you find yourself with an abundance of unstructured time, but perhaps not the same physical energy, social opportunities, or perceived freedom to pursue the things you once postponed or dreamt of doing. This quiet wrestling with what ifs and if onlys is not something people tend to discuss openly. Our societal narratives around aging often focus on the well-deserved wisdom, the freedom of retirement, the joys of grandparenthood, and all of these can be wonderfully real and fulfilling. But equally real, though less spoken of, is the lingering, often unspoken question that can echo in the quiet moments. What now? If you have dedicated the majority of your life to working, to giving, to running a household, to raising a family, to serving others in various capacities, and then that primary driving force significantly diminishes or ceases altogether, it can feel as though your very purpose is fading in tandem with those activities. The identity that was so closely interwoven with those roles can feel unmoored. I knew a thoughtful man named Stanley, who at 88 often reflected on his life. He had been a dedicated and beloved teacher for over 40 years, shaping countless young minds. After his retirement, he initially felt a sense of pride and relief, but this was soon tinged with a strange and unexpected hollowness. "It's not that I miss the grading or the staff meetings," he once shared, a wistful look in his eyes, "but I miss the feeling of being essential. No one really needs me anymore in that same way." His sentiment, however, wasn't entirely accurate. He was still deeply needed and valued by his family and friends, but the form of his purpose, the way his contributions were made and recognized, had undeniably shifted. He just hadn't yet fully identified or embraced the new ways in which his presence and wisdom could be a source of meaning and connection. Because purpose, fundamentally, doesn't retire when your career does, or when your children are grown, or when your physical abilities change. It simply transforms. It seeks new avenues for expression. Perhaps you no longer build literal houses, but you can build confidence in your great-grandchildren with your captivating stories and patient attention. Perhaps you no longer lead boardroom meetings, but you can lead with the quiet strength of your presence when offering comfort to someone who is grieving. Perhaps you no longer solve large-scale societal problems, but you can solve the problem of loneliness for a neighbor with a warm smile, a kind word, or a shared cup of tea. Stanley's feeling of "no one needs me anymore" after a long career is a common yet painful experience. This is our fifth and final key reality. If you've contemplated the nature of purpose in different life stages, or if you're finding this discussion on redefining it valuable, please comment with the number 5 below. What does purpose mean to you as life evolves? The true danger of regret in later life isn't merely the acknowledgement that mistakes were made or opportunities missed, for who among us has lived a life entirely free of such moments? The real peril lies in allowing oneself to become mired in these reflections, to sit with them for too long without actively seeking to transmute them into something meaningful, something that informs the present rather than merely casting a shadow from the past. When you begin to redefine purpose, not as a measure of external productivity or societal validation, but as the quality of your presence, your capacity for connection, your ability to bring kindness and understanding into your interactions, you start to realize the immense value you still possess and the myriad ways you still have so much to give, not just to others, but crucially to yourself. Because perhaps the most important and sacred work you will undertake after 80 may not be for legacy, applause, or external recognition. It may simply be this: waking each day with kindness in your heart, with a persistent curiosity in your eyes and with enough quiet courage to ask yourself, how can I bring a little more light into the world today, even if it's just in a small, almost imperceptible way? That orientation is not one of regret. It is one of active, ongoing redemption. And it is never, ever too late to find it, to cultivate it, to live it. To reach one's 80s is in itself a remarkable achievement, a testament to a life lived through decades of profound change, love, loss, unceasing effort, and the quiet accumulation of resilience. It is a landmark built not of stone and mortar, but of experiences, relationships, and the myriad lessons etched into the heart and mind. Yet, accompanying this significant milestone are new challenges, some so subtle they are like whispers on the wind, others undeniably hard to ignore, demanding attention and adaptation. Facing these 5 realities we've explored, the shrinking social sphere, the body's altered cadence of recovery, the evolving dance with dependence, the unsettling feeling of being overlooked, and the imperative to redefine purpose amidst lingering regrets, does not render one weak. On the contrary, it makes one profoundly honest. It signifies a depth of living, an arrival at a vantage point where life can be seen with a clarity that only time and experience can bestow. Unpredictable, at times seemingly unfair, yet still and always deeply worth showing up for with an open heart. So, as we've journeyed through these reflections, which of these 5 realities resonated most powerfully with you? Was it the encroaching silence that can accompany a social world beginning to contract? Or perhaps the acute frustration of a body that no longer bounces back with the vigor of youth, demanding a new kind of respect and care? Could it be the internal discomfort of needing to ask for help when a lifetime has been spent being the primary helper, the strong one? Or maybe it was the poignant sting of feeling invisible, that sensation of the world moving too quickly to notice the wisdom and experience you carry. Or, perchance, it was the quiet ache that can surface when purpose feels elusive and the past casts long shadows. Whatever aspect touched you most deeply, I hope you felt seen and understood in these words, because the unequivocal truth is that you are not alone in any of this. Not in the inevitable slowing down, not in the moments of forgetting, not in the existential questions that might keep you awake in the quiet hours of the night, nor in those moments of vulnerability that make you wonder, with a mix of trepidation and curiosity, what comes next. And herein lies the empowering good news. Even now, even at this advanced and sacred stage of life, you retain the profound power of choice. You can consciously choose to seek out and nurture connection, however that may look. You can choose to honor your body with restorative rest and gentle movement. You can choose to bravely ask for help when needed, reframing it as an act of wisdom. You can choose to speak your truth a little louder when someone overlooks your presence, and conversely, to offer your words more softly and with greater compassion when someone else needs your grace. You can choose, most powerfully, to forgive yourself for what didn't happen, for paths not taken, and to honor yourself wholeheartedly for all that did, for the journey you've made. This chapter of life, the one that unfolds beyond 80, is not merely an epilogue or a gentle fading. It is, in fact, the deep part of the story. It's the segment where every word, every gesture, every quiet moment of reflection carries an accumulated weight of meaning. It's the phase where small, heartfelt gestures of kindness and connection often mean far more than grand, ostentatious ones ever did. It is the time when your sheer presence, your cultivated patience, your unique and hard-won perspective, these intrinsic qualities transform into your greatest strengths, your most potent powers. We've journeyed through 5 significant, often unspoken realities of life after 80. Which of these resonated most deeply with you? Or what is the most important lesson you're taking away for yourself or for how you interact with elders in your life? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights enrich our community and help us all learn and grow. Remember, the journey of aging is one we all share in some capacity, whether personally or through our relationships with loved ones. Approaching it with understanding, empathy, and proactive compassion makes all the difference. Thank you for joining us in this thoughtful exploration today. If these shares have brought value to you, please support our channel by hitting the like button, subscribing, and remember to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss insightful and useful content like this in the future. We deeply appreciate your presence and look forward to seeing you in the next video.